Last summer, my family and I moved into a new neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. I was both excited and nervous about the change. My name is Rebecca, and I had lived in the same small town most of my life. Starting fresh in a new place felt like stepping into a book with blank pages waiting to be filled. Our neighbors were kind, welcoming people who quickly made us feel at home. On our first weekend there, the Wilson family from next door dropped by with a basket of baked goods. Mrs. Wilson was warm and cheerful, and her husband had the kind of calm voice that put people at ease. They had 2 children, their daughter, Hannah, who was already in college, and their son, Jason, who had just turned 19. Jason was tall, shy, and polite. He seemed like the kind of young man who kept to himself, and I assumed he would spend most of his time at school or with friends. But as weeks went by, I realized he was more observant than people gave him credit for. He noticed when our lawn needed mowing and offered to help without being asked. He carried groceries in when he saw me struggling with heavy bags. One evening, the Wilsons invited us to a neighborhood gathering at their home. It was their tradition to host a summer party every year where everyone brought food, laughed, and caught up with each other. Since we were new, they insisted we come so we could meet everyone. That Saturday, my husband, our 2 kids, and I walked across the lawn to their backyard. String lights were hung above the tables, music floated in the air, and neighbors chatted with plates of food in their hands. The smell of barbecue filled the yard. My kids ran off to play with other children while my husband started talking to a group of men near the grill. I found myself sitting at a picnic table with some of the women from the neighborhood. They were kind, sharing stories about schools, work, and even recipes. I laughed and listened, happy to feel a sense of belonging again. Then, in the middle of all this normal chatter, Jason did something that surprised everyone. He stood up in front of the crowd, holding a guitar. I hadn't even noticed he had brought it outside. People quieted down, and even the kids paused in their games. Jason's parents exchanged confused looks as though they hadn't expected this either. Jason cleared his throat nervously. I wanted to share something, he said. His voice trembled a little, but he kept going. Most of you know me as the quiet guy who doesn't say much. But music has always been important to me, and tonight I thought I'd be brave enough to play in front of people for the first time. Everyone clapped, encouraging him. I could see his mother smiling proudly, though she looked as surprised as the rest of us. He started strumming gently, and the moment his voice joined the chords, the entire backyard grew silent in awe. His singing wasn't just good, it was powerful, heartfelt, and deeply moving. It wasn't the kind of performance that felt rehearsed or polished for show. It was raw, genuine, and full of emotion. The lyrics spoke about change, about leaving childhood behind and stepping into adulthood with uncertainty but also with hope. It felt like he was telling his own story through music. I noticed some people wiping their eyes. The Wilsons looked at their son as though seeing him for the first time in a new light. Even my husband, who rarely commented on music, leaned over and whispered, "He's incredible." When Jason finished, the crowd erupted with applause. His face turned red, and he laughed nervously, thanking everyone. His mom rushed over to hug him while neighbors patted him on the back. For the rest of the night, Jason wasn't the quiet neighbor's son anymore. He was someone who had shared a piece of himself with all of us, someone who had caught everyone off guard by showing a hidden side of his personality. That night taught me something important. Often, we think we know people by the little bits we see day to day, the polite smiles, the brief conversations. But sometimes, there are whole stories behind those smiles waiting to be told. Jason reminded us all that courage can change the way people see you, and that even in the most ordinary settings, extraordinary moments can happen. Weeks after the party, people were still talking about it. The Wilsons told me Jason had been writing songs for years but never had the courage to share them. That night was a turning point for him. He began performing at open mic nights in the city, slowly building confidence. As for me, I learned that a neighborhood isn't just about houses lined up next to each other, it's about the people inside those homes, each carrying dreams, talents, and stories worth knowing. And all it took was one summer evening, one guitar, and one brave young man to remind us that sometimes, the quietest voices have the loudest impact.